Welcome, everybody, to the April webcast, the April episode of the TSN webcast. We're honored to have you with us. Let's roll ahead here. A little bit about us. If you are new to the Stewardship Network, let's give you the quick introduction. We are in our 21st year, formally, longer if you count the early days, 501c3 nonprofit organization with a 20-year history, as we said, now proudly serving more than 30 place-based TSN member communities and fiscally sponsored projects all across the Great Lakes and increasingly the country. We've got folks in Baltimore, the Pacific Northwest, California, Cincinnati, Duluth, all the great places. We serve them first and foremost, but a lot of programs like the one you're looking at right now are available to everyone, and we're really glad to have you with us, whatever your affiliation. So thank you very much. We exist as an organization to connect, equip, and mobilize nature's caretakers. If you're here as nature's caretakers, guess what? This is part of it. We are equipping you, we're connecting you, and we're very glad to have you here. Let's proceed. A little bit about each one of these, as we like to say, the connection comes from all the knowledge we've gained through those 2 decades. It's made a big difference. We've learned a lot as we've been in the background of a lot of great initiatives, and it's part of our mission to share that as widely as possible with all of you, and this program is a part of that. Go ahead. The equipping can be ethereal or it can be very tangible. We remove hurdles so that you stewards can pour more of your energy into the ecosystem, into your community, and it's a big part of it. And finally, mobilize. We're going to talk mobilize in just a second here, but the whole point of this is that we make you stronger. We get you in the field more of your day, and so that your efforts just have more impact. Your mobilization is what it's all about, and as field season approaches, it's more important than ever. Let's talk about that mobilize for a second, because if you are here solely for Evan Larson, I don't blame you one bit, but we are going to ask you to take a quick journey with us through our flagship field season program, the Spring Challenge. TSN Spring begins in 55 minutes, and you're the first to hear about it for this year, so thank you for being with us for the kickoff. Let's roll. Go ahead and populate all these. Through the years, this thing has been going since 2008. It started with a simple focus of garlic mustard. It expanded to spring invasive species and has increasingly become something for all forms of stewardship, and we're really proud of that. Obviously, you folks are out there doing the work. That's not in question. The point of this program is to sort of draw more attention to it, inspire each other, and to have us just lean. Hey, I saw that Amanda's team was out there an extra hour. Maybe I can be out here an extra hour too. Whatever your role is, we just want to do more together. Like I said, since 2008, and it piles up, folks. We have now recorded over 462,000 hours of various stewardship activities, over 70,000 total participants. Last year was a huge one for that, broke the records. Tons of work hour value, 2.5 million pounds of invasive species biomass removed from ecosystems. It really racks up. When you start counting what we're all doing together, it's phenomenal. And those sorts of numbers are the sorts of numbers that break through, which is the whole point. And a question we get all the time, who can be involved? Well, look, it all counts, and it all counts in a couple of different ways. Volunteers are huge. Individuals, spoiler alert, that is my son with his shovel in the ground. There are ways for every single person, regardless of your affiliation or non-affiliation, to be involved. You pick up trash in your local park, report it. Awesome, fantastic. This is your day job? Fantastic, love that too. We don't count your booking and your travel, but everything else you're doing that's, boots on the ground, hands in the earth, that's really taking care of your ecosystem, it all matters. So professional groups, strike teams, SISMAs, we love having you involved. The categories, if you did this last year with us, are the same. Plant removal, new planting, trash removal, ecosystem monitoring, prescribed burning, education, advocacy. That's a big one for some of our groups that do spend a lot of time out in their communities talking to folks about invasive species or NIASMA sort of things. There's just a lot you can do. And then the more we nail these categories, the smaller the other entries get. So I think we're in a pretty good spot. But yeah, really others there for anything that is caretaking of the earth. So here's how the reporting works. Hours are the metric. It's the one thing that all these activities have in common. So that's sort of the currency of the land here. We really encourage you to report early and to report often. We have this online form. If you go to stewardshipnetwork.org whack spring, Rob, maybe you can drop that in the chat for me. That's where you're going to go. It's not open yet. It'll open at the top of the hour here as soon as we're done. You can also, if that form, which is great and accepts multiple types of activities at once, you can do your own thing. You've already got it collected somewhere else. You've got it in a spreadsheet. Great. Oh, wait, you don't have a spreadsheet? Your data needs a home? No problem. Rachel made you one. That's how much she would love for you not to dump it on her at the very last second. And we support that. So there's a lot of ways to do it. We're very much here to help. What you're already doing is great. We just need to know about it. Reporting is the key. And then our role is to grow the attention and the motivation. So as you go through this, we love this season. You send us not just your data, which will of course be counted in the big numbers, but if you also are interested in sending us stories, verbatims, testimonials, and importantly, images of your work days and the folks that are out there, that's huge. So we spend a lot of time developing a large social media presence, and that's what this is for. So we can get your names out there, we can show your images with your permission, and just say, look, this is great. Look who's doing this. I mean, this is where the inspiration really comes from. Whether you're a big group inspiring an individual inspiring another, it just really piles up to know that we're not doing this alone. We do also, going back years and years to when this used to be a little more inside and it was a bit of a friendly competition, there are still honors for like who really rocked it this season. And so that sort of when do more becomes do most, we make a fuss about that in July after the program ends on June 30th. The boosts are something that's only a few years old, but has been really great. And here's the basic idea. There is a temptation, given how important your work is and how long your days are, like we said, to sort of save your data and throw it all at Rachel at the last second. Thank you for doing that. Way better than not doing it. But we really know from folks who have told us to our faces that when the reporting comes in as it happens, it really gets people moving. It really makes the inspiration flow. It's really great for the program. So we have called upon our community to donate cool things. We've generated donations so that there are cool nature-centric prizes, everything from passes to gardens and free cups of coffee and hoodies with TSN logos on them, right? So the point is we draw those every week out of who's there. So when you report early and consistently, you're increasing your chances to get little thank yous. But most important, you're making that number real earlier. Sometimes the curve of this gets real last second jump, and that's fine. But really, when this thing can be healthy all the way along, it's doing its job more effectively. So we're more than happy to incent you to report early and not wait to the last minute. And sometimes, let's be real, we just talked about what you're giving. Thank you very much. So what do you get? It depends on who you are and what you value. Some folks have told us that, there was a group I won't name names, but they just said, we know we should be tracking closer than we have, and this structure really helped us have our own numbers at the end. So awesome. Fantastic. We love that. Some people say our numbers are great, but they just aren't as big. And so, like we said, it's hard to get media attention sometimes or community attention when it's like, this is great, but it's just, there's not a lot of zeros on it. Sometimes just being able to say, look, we are a part of a movement that did this really huge eye-popping number really helps you break through. Some folks, it's very personal. They just say, I love to be a part of this. Sometimes this work outside of your immediate team can be kind of isolating, and it just feels good to be a part of something bigger. And some folks have said, like, I was looking for an event to be involved in this, and that's how I found my local TSN member community, my SISMA, my whatever, my Parks Association. It makes a big difference. And then some folks, this is a fringe benefit, but we love it. They just say it's cool to be on your social media a lot. Your following is big, and this gets people coming to our properties and engage in our channels, and we love that. Specifically, if you roll ahead, there's a group, the Lake St. Clair SISMA. Folks, I don't know if they're here today, but let me just say that they really rock this. They take us up on this offer a lot, and we love them for it. They have great photographs. Prior to April 8th, good question just came in from Michael. Activities before today don't count because we have to have some kind of boundary. So no, not yet. And in an hour when this thing opens up, it'll be great. I know it's tough. Different ecosystems. We have a teammate in Duluth, and they're like, yeah, the dirt's still frozen, y'all. We're not quite there. But we also have groups in California that have maybe already started things. But yeah, the binding here is April 8th to June 30th. That's the range. Cool. So, like I said, reporting begins today, not this second, but quite soon. I will take a second and drop this here. You're going to have it. You can peek now, but you're not going to be able to report just yet. But of course, you're not going to want to because, folks, let me introduce you. If you don't already know, Evan Larson. He was an incredibly wonderful keynote for the TSN conference in early 2024. Folks talked about him before and after. In my modest time here, one of the finest presentations we received live, and the only one to use the best Dave Matthews record inside of his presentation before these crowded streets. It is our great honor to have with us again Evan Larson, who is appearing via the Ho Chunk Nation, where he is doing live events today, before and after this. So thank you so much for being with us, Evan. It's great to have you here.
Bob, maybe we should just put on an album and just not worry about it and then
I
just hang
mean,
out for
I
a little
love
bit.
it. I love it. We'll do that after.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to take a minute here and get my screen share set up. And I'm going to replace the current share to claim this.
Please do.
Oops. All right. Okay. Are we good? Do we have a screen?
It's here. Fire away.
Uh, Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for the invitation to come back and connect with the Stewardship Network again. Wow. So that was only 2 years ago. And it seems like there's a lot that's changed. Take a deep breath. Yeah, it was such a great experience to head over and connect with the Stewardship Network. The folks that you have gathered and are on this call, just an amazing group of passionate people doing really good and important work. This was my introduction to the Stewardship Network, and I did take a peek at the chat or at the participants. So I know some of you were there. And just as a real quick recap, so I shared a slide or a presentation titled Reciprocity Through Flames. And over the course of that talk, we looked at beautiful paintings to consider Western concepts of wilderness. We sprinkled a little bit of reference to Monty Python to critique that idea and acknowledge a brilliant movie that then connects, of course. Thanks for the call out to listening to some Dave Matthews and diving into the lyrics to recognize that we're also hearing a little bit of T.S. Eliot. And it's all speaking to the central cultural myth of wilderness. And so then we went up to the Boundary Waters, Canoe Area Wilderness, on the border between Minnesota and Ontario. And we looked at some fire-scarred trees together. And then used those stories that are recorded in the rings of those trees to, I don't know, in a lot of cases, I think many of you may have been there or are familiar with that landscape, to take this really beautiful space that embodies the notion of wilderness and then recognize how these trees are carrying stories that when you compile them together, clearly show that this is a landscape with a deep, long, enduring cultural history. Just to remind those of us of this truth from a data perspective, when there are also stories that tell us the same thing. We looked at this map, which is one version of the Anishinaabe migration from the Atlantic Ocean down through the Great Lakes. And then thought about how when you compare where the people have been to, say, the range of Bapakwanagamaag, red pine, how closely aligned those are. And then to step into this space and look at some of these really beautiful locations that were part of the language that justified the 1964 Wilderness Act, and recognize that these are very much socio-ecological systems, and that there are these really beautiful parallels between the fate of red pine, its dependence on fire, and beings like sweetgrass. And so we talked a little bit about Robin Kimmerer's work and how there are these lessons, this deep importance of reciprocity that shapes who we are, and how we interact with each other and with the land. And we talked a little bit about some ongoing work that was happening at the head of Lake Superior. And so you're looking at a blank slide here. In the past 2 years, there's been a tremendous amount of change, culturally, politically, ecologically, climate wise. In my own life, I had an opportunity to take a job at the University of Minnesota. I ended up not doing that because we were navigating some incredibly difficult care for my kids. And I still feel that a little bit. And we're doing some really hard work to make sure that we're taking care of the ones that we love. And so it's been fascinating to just look then and see kind of what all has transpired. And while a lot of us have navigated a lot of hardship in the conservation world, especially just in terms of shifting funding structures and opportunities and just so much in this world to navigate, there's been a lot of just amazing work that has emerged. And in working with fire, which has still become, it has maintained its prominence in what I think about on a daily basis. I was burning on campus at UW-Platteville with my students the last 2 days and scrubbed the soot off last night at about 9 o'clock and got up at 5 to get up here to this beautiful location in the Ho-Chunk Nation's ancestral lands to work with the Wisconsin Indian Education Association. And we're going to do a workshop today about our personal relationships with fire. And then tomorrow we're going to hopefully do some curriculum development for K-12. And so fire has just continued to be this really important source of healing and comfort for me. And one of the pieces that has come out really strongly is that all through this work, the story of the indigenous peoples who've been living in these places forever, and whose language and stories and culture are intimately connected with the land and fire, that it's really critical that in future conversations we acknowledge, nothing about us without us. And so in the spirit of that, I talked a little bit about this at the Stewardship Network. We were just getting going, but we have, there's a National Science Foundation funded grant that I've been working on with some incredible collaborators, and it's a planning grant. This is the group of PIs, except Bazil Panak there. He is our project coordinator among the many, many other hats that he wears. And so over the last couple of years, we've been working on this project. Here's the core group, but this is not the entire group. There's so many people connected to this work. And just a little glimpse, these are the individuals and organizations that have jumped on board to try and, to be a part of the conversations. A great kickoff meeting a couple of years ago. And since that meeting, we've hosted a series of fireside conversations or listening sessions, if you will, at Fond du Lac, Red Cliff, Bad River, Menominee. We've been up to Bay Mills. Actually, today, there's an event at Dream of Wild Health, which is this incredible organization out of the Twin Cities. Next week, Fond du Lac Tribal and Community College is hosting an event for area educators and tribal students. And then, that's actually 2 weeks because next week we're going to be in Little Traverse Bay, Vanceboro, to have a fireside conversation there. All of these conversations, what we realized was that it was really important as we start envisioning what work with fire comes next, and especially what kind of research comes next, that the ideas that are pursued and engaged are something that are identified and structured by communities that we're working with, as well as, I just realized maybe I need to hide this panel. I'm so sorry. There we go. And so to make sure that whatever work comes out of future work, that it also benefits the people whose relationships are really a core part of this. And so the way these events have gone, we've been connecting with local partners. We set up a flyer. These events are meant very specifically for community members and folks whose voices are really important to this conversation, but may not always have the time and space or opportunity to share their thoughts. We'll start typically with a field trip out to a location that's been identified by the host community as a culturally significant or a place of memory. We'll walk around, we'll eat delicious food, and then we gather in conversation. Melanie Montano, a member of Red Cliff and one of the PIs on the project, a long-term collaborator, and Bazil Panik, her son, do a phenomenal job of facilitating conversations, helping to draw out stories that folks have and maybe have been carrying or questions, and making this space really safe and accessible to just talk about fire, talk about questions, talk about histories, stories, memories, opportunities, challenges, and come into that space of sharing. These are typically pretty emotional. There's a lot of trauma associated with a lot of these conversations because in so many cases, like in the Boundary Waters and elsewhere, these relationships, they've been disrupted and people are in a really active process of remembering. And what has been really interesting to see is that there are some really strong common themes that emerge. But especially evident is also the differences among communities. And some of that is pretty nuanced and some of it is really significant. A lot of conversation around the importance of fire if we're talking about water. Certainly this interest and these stories in a lot of cases that are kind of simmering underneath the surface that are emerging really rapidly right now. And one of the most amazing things that we've seen is just this intense investment of people who are coming to these conversations and are extremely excited about fire, maybe having even started their first fire only a few months ahead and all of a sudden finding this opportunity. And so one of the clear outcomes is this incredible resurgence that is evident and ongoing. In that project, we're trying really hard not to overstep what's been shared and interpret ahead of time. So we now have, over the next couple of weeks, we're wrapping up our fireside conversations. We're going to have a big partner gathering to report out on what those conversations led to, and then a workshop to think about, of the most important research needs that have been identified through these conversations, how do we approach them? What sort of funding is available? What sort of opportunities are there? We'll have a writing workshop to develop some of these proposals and then send those out to the entire partner network for feedback. And ideally, by the end of this year, we'll have an idea of where we're going next. So that's a really exciting project. I don't have any results to share because, again, we're trying to be really careful. But over these conversations, it has been so exciting to see the work that is already happening. And so up at Bay Mills, they've got this beautiful Minan Ishkude project happening. This was something we talked about as part of the fireside conversation. They've got all this great work going. They've got a site, the Little Plains area. It's on the shores of Lake Superior. That was where we went for the field trip when we were up at Bay Mills. Had a really amazing conversation with community members, lots of really great sharing, beautiful place, as so many of these are. And then we went out the next day in collaboration with Bay Mills, and we did a little bit of fire scar sampling, which was a great way to kind of show the process of how this knowledge can become available. And so some beautiful fire scarred cross sections. I have a student at UW-Platteville who is helping to work up the sections. We're heading up there to report out to the community in a couple of weeks. He just shared a poster at the AAG conference in San Francisco a couple of weeks back. And so there's this great story. It is strikingly similar to many of the other locations we've worked and also distinct, just like the conversations. But one of the most profound parts that emerged from this, and just to kind of take a look at some of the tree ring samples and what they look like, this beautiful surface, and you can see each of those curves. That's that fire scar. And if you zoom in and you start looking at these curving scars, you can see that you actually, I'll get my mouse moving. I think you can see this. Right? If you follow that line, you can actually see exactly when the heat of that passing fire soaked through the bark, and raised the temperature of the cambium up to about 140 degrees. And that's while cellular death occurs. And so that is the origin of the scar. And you can see exactly when it happens. And so in the tree ring community, there's a lot of conversation about seasonality. And this is especially relevant for those of you who are putting fire on the ground. What time of year do you do this to achieve the outcomes that you're hoping to maximize your ecological benefit? So seasonality is really important because a spring fire can have dramatically different effects and expressions than a fall fire or a mid-growing season burn. And so when we zoom in, you can see again this fire scar, and it's coming right along. And in the tree ring community, there's this horrendous challenge of, if you have a fire scar and it is right between growth rings, was that a fall burn that came after the tree had stopped growing? Or is it a spring burn before it stopped growing? And so that's a key part of interpreting these records. And if you zoom in just one more, all of a sudden what you start to see is that this scar at the Little Sand Plains site comes in right below the end of that growth ring, which is the cambium here, or that darker line. So this is a late season fire scar, which is beautiful to see. And beautifully aligned, because with these the fireside conversations, the community members we're working with often ask somebody in the community to share a statement about, why should we gather and tell these stories and share these thoughts? Well, the statement shared at Bay Mills was, last one out of the berry patch, touch it off. This is a blueberry burn etched into the cells of this tree that is now giving that information in a way that complements these stories and this knowledge just beautifully. This was a fall burn, probably after the berries had been harvested. There's other really cool stuff happening in Michigan. I bet some of you know about this. Little Traverse Bay, Bands of Odawa, Michigan Natural Features Inventory, and Michigan State University are doing some really cool work. I want a special call out to Kurt Kiffmueller here, who was my PhD advisor. He's been long-term colleague and collaborator and a really, really important friend for a lot of years. He's been working at the University of Minnesota until last year, when he took on a new position at Michigan State University. So I'm really excited for Kurt. He gets to go home. He is deeply Michigan. And I'm really excited for the folks in Michigan who have a really wonderful person who's going to be doing a lot of work right there in collaboration with people who have made one of the most beautiful icons for a project I have ever seen, or this logo for setting the straits on fire. It's their collaborative work. Looking at fire through tree rings, through traditional stories, through community knowledge to really inform the restoration of fire and the promotion of really important species like blueberries and things like that. And so it's exciting to see all of these occurrences. Again, this resurgence of getting fire on the ground in really good ways. Another thing that happened over the past year, and I shared a story with you all at the end of my talk a couple years back. And I was reflecting, I had totally forgotten this, but when I was an undergraduate, my senior year at Willamette University, one of my friends was an art major. And for her project, she created an illustrated children's book of her family's heritage in central Michigan and Mexico, and their immigration to the United States. It was a beautiful, beautiful book, and her colors were vivid, and she drew these flames, and it was just magnificent. And I had just become introduced to the field of dendrochronology and fire history, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have a children's book that had fire and tree rings? Oh, it would just be amazing. I am so excited to share that it's happened. So last year, Ishkode, A Story of Fire, which is based off of the story that I shared at the conference, was published by Black Bears and Blueberries Press, an Indigenous-owned press from Duluth and Redcliffe, or Bayfield. Miri Villiard, the illustrator, Fond du Lac direct descendant from up near Duluth. She's now in the Twin Cities working on a master's in human rights. Super important work with a foreword by Robin Kimmerer. Just It was so exciting to see this book come out. We had 1,500 copies printed on our first run. Miri's work brought things to life. Just beautiful story about a point of land and a grandmother red pine on a Kubijigan, and a couple humans who got to pick blueberries, share some stories. And I'm not going to ask you to read these because we're just going to skip through a little bit. But just to share some of the illustrations that Miri created, just this beautiful, beautiful expression of a really important understanding of the land. And a way to bring the work that we're doing to an audience that really needs to hear this story, to see changes in the land and understand why they happened, and then what they can do to help create change and healing. And importantly, there's fire and it's beautiful, and there are tree rings in this book, and I am so excited. It's completely sold out. I think Melanie has a few copies left. Miri might have a few that you could buy through her website, but otherwise, Black Bears and Blueberries Press, they ran through. It got out to a lot of places, and we're really excited. But it went fast. And I'm excited to say that we reached out to the University of Minnesota Press, and they are going to do a second printing. And it is officially available October 31st or 13th. It is possible that some of these will be available earlier. So we're really excited. We went with University of Minnesota Press because Tom and Betsy Peacock are, I guess it depends which one of them you ask. They are either retired or maybe retiring. And so we figured that this was a better long-term route for this book. And so we're really excited to have Ishkude, A Story of Fire, back on the shelves here soon. We have a new grant from the Wisconsin Sea Grant program to develop K-12 curriculum around this as well, excitedly, if all goes well, to have Miri actually animate the story and bring it into an animated short as part of her work. So we're really, really excited. This is going to be a really important way to take the work that's been happening in so many places and help channel it in such a way that we can start reading this book to our young ones to help build a different relationship with fire from the very ground up. This is another crew. So Tom DeShanes of Old Saw Media is on the left. Melanie Montano and her daughter Sophia and Bazile. We made a film. We were working on this when I gave my talk. And that also came out last spring in the midst of everything. We've shown it, I think, at 17 different film festivals now, as well as some screenings set up by community groups and organizations who are interested in promoting conversations around fire. And it's been going just fantastically. Melanie was able to go to Los Angeles just a couple of weeks ago to a Women in Film or Indigenous Women in Film event through the Red Nation International Film Festival. But it's been going great. And again, it's another way to have that story of fire shared. And so if it's okay, I'm going to share the trailer with you. So let's see if it comes. Close your eyes and I'll say a word and make a picture in your mind. And the word is wilderness. People talk about mountains and deep, dark forest. It's almost never that somebody would think about people in that setting. That's the scar tip from that outer line.
A lot of those ecosystems were in the conditions that they were because of mostly indigenous people managing those landscapes with things like fire.
After those fires stopped, the forest grows in. You have this huge change in forest structure and composition. So this is not a wilderness. This is a human modified fire regime.
The Forest Service came in and said, no more fire, no more managing the landscape, no more doing what you know how to do.
When policies and actions tried to sever relationships between people and the land, the pines stayed.
That's totally a cultural modification.
They're missing a key piece of information.
Check this one out.
Everybody, they see smoke and they think it's a bad thing. It's like, we got to change that way of thinking.
Those are the last generations of years. because red pine and Great Lakes cannot exist without the fires that we're now understanding people were setting. Ooh. So really excited to have this going. I'm going to try and skip through it, but there we go. There we go. Okay. So the film has been out. These are some of the events that we've been to with it, and we just got another invitation for the Northern Plains Indigenous Film Festival. And so we're really trying to have conversations around fire and people's relationship with it in as many places as we can to just keep this conversation moving and keep people engaged and thinking about what comes next. And just to share a few last things, and then I would love to just have a conversation about what you all have been up to these last couple of years and where fire stands in your world, because so many people are doing so much important work. But I want to go back to the head of Lake Superior here, Minnesota Point, arcing out toward Wisconsin Point. And there was a project that I was just in the process of wrapping up in collaboration with Melanie Montano and a whole bunch of just, again, incredible people out on these points. There's really beautiful, beautiful and important places that have been significant to people and plants and cultures forever, really. There's this group of students from Fond du Lac Tribal and Community College who are doing this project. Their work was amazing. I shared some of their results with you back in 2024. They've gone on to present this at conferences, and they're looking at graduate programs, and just really, they've got some amazing jobs. And it's been really incredible to see both the work that they did on this project, but how that's translating into the work that they are pursuing. And so seeing, the places that they were out in the forest, understanding the stories that they were helping to uncover, and just the advocacy that they have stepped into in terms of reestablishing relationships with fire. It's been just awesome. And they deserve an incredible amount of recognition. And it's really great to see that starting to come. So just a couple of weeks ago, there was an open house at the Lake Superior Estuarium in Superior, Wisconsin, where they have a brand new exhibit about Ishkude fire and the importance of fire to Minnesota Point and Wisconsin Point. The exhibit was beautiful. There, I think 100 and some people that showed up for the open house and that community conversation. Had a paper come out just recently in the Proceedings of the National Academies of Science that reported out the data and the stories, and I'm incredibly proud of how this paper was collaboratively written, and certainly sets an Indigenous understanding and perspective right up front in terms of how we recognize and interpreted the results of the work. The conversations at the community level that have emerged from this have just been absolutely stunning. The City of Superior and the Fond du Lac Band have been driving conversations in collaboration with a whole bunch of organizations to look at restoring fire to Wisconsin Point, which is just incredibly important. There's a U.S. Fish and Wildlife grant that is supporting a similar effort, a parallel project on Minnesota Point, so that false and invisible state boundary that separates or doesn't separate landforms that are the same, the Ajay Manadu Mino Ishkudeng Jagawamakang Neashi project, which the name was slightly revised just recently to Jagawamakang Neashi Ajay Nama Manadu Ishkude. So returning the spirit of good fire to Minnesota Point. And just to see this incredible groundswell of grassroots efforts to engage with fire and engage in these places that are so important and so beautiful to so many people, Indigenous and non-Indigenous alike. And so having these conversations emerge, thinking about what do we do with the understanding that we have, seeing this outpouring of support of community engagement events, questions about how do we do this rather than if it should be done. It's just been really amazing. And the folks on the ground in the Twin Ports area have done so much work to carry the conversation forward. And it was really funny because when we first started the project, we held a ceremony out on Minnesota or Wisconsin Point. And one of the folks that was at that ceremony, we're asking permission to engage with this land and to do the best that we could, knowing that we will make mistakes, but that we're doing this with the best of hearts and intent. And one of the folks there said, "Well, you're asking this, but how do you know? How do you know that the answer is yes?" And it was pretty neat because about 5 minutes later, a young white-tailed deer walked up behind it and stood at the edge of our circle for some time. And we're like, well, that's a good indication that this works. But Melanie said, it's the way that the work unfolds. And when you see things happen in a way that aligns with the intent of the project, you can know. And so I want to share a little bit of a story of that alignment, I think. I would imagine a lot of you have burned, and I would imagine many of you actually burned within kind of the climatic zone of the Great Lakes, and you know how fickle that weather can be. And so there is a process for planning out a prescribed burn, to put together your plan, to do all the work, all the unit prep, and then to sit and wait for the weather to align. There's been a lot of talk about getting fire on Wisconsin Point all last summer, even started in the spring, and trying to get the alignment of those conditions. And so last November, if you were out on Wisconsin Point, you would have found one day for weeks around where the conditions aligned. And if you went out there, if you're familiar with, how you might conduct a burn, it looked pretty normal. There's a circle of people, a board, an organization chart. And then there were some really important differences as we went through this process. You had folks from Fond du Lac, you had folks from City of Superior. You had some really powerful words shared in ceremony to start this off, to ask for safety and that the work be done well. Yeah, the Nature Conservancy stepping in to boss this burn. The lines were prepped. They all looked pretty normal. And then that first test fire set with less than normal ignition device, I think, for what a lot of us work in. And then to see that it was the mayor of Superior standing with an elder from Fond du Lac, Vern Northrup, longtime wildland firefighter, to see that as the start of a burn that then starts to creep through the understory and doing that work, and knowing that the smoke that's rising through these branches is the first smoke to touch these pines in over 150 years. Fond du Lac led the firing. Superior did the holding, their fire department. And this beautiful, gentle, quiet fire kind of backed through most of this day, most of the unit, knowing that our day is short in November. Seeing the boughs of those pines lift, like I'm sure some of you have seen when the heat of that fire does that gentle up. To see the view and to know that this is the first time that it's happened in so long, and then to have the photos start trickling in from the hillside in Duluth, to see the smoke pouring up and out and moving down the lake, to know what that represents, this renewal, this picking up of responsibilities, and then to have the fire creep just to the edge of the unit as the sun sets and the humidity rises, to get this quiet, calm, slow end to this beautiful day. And then have the crew walking back to the parking lot for our after action review as the supermoon rises over Lake Superior. And the fireworks through beneath an eagle nest. And then the Northern Lights danced that night. It felt really good.
And you ask how you know. That's how you know.
That's how you know.
Yep.
The name of the project, Nimuwanji Yadamin Giwatashkideng, that led a lot of this work, translates to together we are gathering around the fire. And for those who care for the land so intensely as so many of you do, and you see the need, and you know how important this work is, and to see how fire as spirit and process agency has brought so many people together to do such important work at such an important time is really just beautiful. And so those are some of the things that we've been up to over the last couple of years. We got some curriculum change at UW-Platteville. We got a new fire stewardship certificate we're really excited to have. Been a lot of healing in my family. There's been a lot of healing on the land. And I hope that you have found a lot of things that bring you joy as you are doing this important work. And that's what I wanted to share. And it looks like we've got maybe 12 minutes for conversation. So I'm going to go ahead and finish my slides. Hi, Lisa.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. I'm
Good to
good.
see you. Good to see you. For those
Good
who
to see you
don't know
too.
me, I'm Lisa Brush with the Stewardship Network, and really pleased to be back here to be able to do Q&A and have a conversation with Evan. Evan, just so incredible. And I think that the ability to bring just everybody together in that way, so many different people for that fire, is just such an incredible thing. And I know that currently today there are a lot of people who are out burning in Southeast Michigan right now. And so whether that's private contractors, our Department of Natural Resources, people are out and burning. The weather has aligned.
Yeah.
So Evan, once again, thank you so much. So good to see you, and really appreciate you sharing the story and the work that you do. And I think that in these times, one of the things that we find is bringing people together to do this stewardship is a place that we can come together across all kinds of differences and all kinds of places to find joy and connection to people and connection to land and connection to all of our kin. And so I really appreciate you bringing that. So a couple different questions for you. A couple of people just saying, wow, amazing, amazing, amazing. Leonardo asked, I am curious to know if there might be any hemlock in your area. Do they require part of their fire as part of their life cycle and ecologies?
Oh, good question. I've done some work in Wisconsin and Michigan, and there's hemlock there. Not so much on the points or up in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the person that you want to reach out to is Jed Munay with Wisconsin DNR. He is another incredible advocate for fire. He's done a ton of research, and he is speaking more and more of the gospel of fire around hemlock. He acknowledges their thick bark. He's talking about some of the regeneration patterns that he's seeing. And so I don't have any work to speak on that directly. We've done a lot of work with hemlock, but more so for climate reconstruction and looking at kind of the old trees and going back because they're so just beautiful trees in so many ways. So it's a good question. I think it's really active, and it is kind of one of those things that further has the potential to flip our understanding of landscapes kind of on its head.
Yep.
I have not been moving for so long that apparently the lights in my hotel lobby have gone away. I'm going to walk around for a second. But
okay, great. And maybe somebody online can, in the chat, somebody can Google Jed Munay. I put how you spell his name in the chat, but maybe somebody else can Google that. Leonardo was looking for his, but I think you'll find him if you Google him. If you Google Jed Munay.
All you got to do is get J-E-D, Jed and fire, and you're going to be good. He's got a lot out there.
Yep. Tom asks, Evan, first of all, thank you. He said, any suggestions on how bringing fire to the, how to bring fire to the Minnesota Valley National Wildlife Refuge in Bloomington, Minnesota? I would welcome the ability to discuss with others as you suggest.
Well, I think that one of the really important parts about doing the work on Minnesota Point and Wisconsin Point is that the multi-jurisdictional aspects of those projects is ridiculous. So Wisconsin Point, there was land that was that included an ancestral burial ground that was legally transferred back to the Fond du Lac Band. So they had land out there in the city of Superior. So it was only two, which is why, and they were both invested in this project, which made it easier. On the Minnesota Point side, there is private land. There's really important archaeological locations. There's DNR SNA. There's City of Duluth. The Army Corps of Engineers. I mean, it is very complicated, and you might encounter similar complications just because of how connected those lands are to so many places. What we found is that having community conversations leading up to it led really mindfully. I think you've got some potentially really valuable collaborators in the Mid-Watonkan Sioux community, but knowing that everybody's so strapped for capacity, I think that there is great opportunity to engage in some of these places. And I think that the more we do, as hard as it is, that's such a visible place that it helps bring so many people along in our collective relationship with fire. And it only takes so many times to see those flames and to see that really beautiful response that you can just see the switch. Yeah.
And Evan, it also sounds like the other thing that you would just really emphasize with that is that the relationship building with the people, with the communities, with all of the different players in that is really just such a key part of that, as well as the relationship with the land.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And so start. Maybe that's the first thing. Start and don't expect it to work right away.
And have food.
Yes. Okay. What was used to start that fire? What was that?
So I brought some props from my workshop today, and I was in this quiet, silent hotel room, and so I brought some things for the workshop. Fortunately, I've got one right here. Okay. So this is a birch bark torch. It's an ash handle, birch bark, and then pine resin around the tip. And so the resin, once that starts burning, burns really long and slow. This was gifted to me by a person named Damon Ponick, and he actually was the one who built the torch that was used to light the fire on Wisconsin Point as well. And what I was amazed, because I haven't used mine yet, I'm really excited to, but Vern Northrup was very, very comfortable with this, and we got it going, and it was just flaming. And then after they lit the fire, he went and he put it out. And then he was like ready to use it again. I was like, whoa, hang on, you can, this is reusable. So
right.
Yeah, really beautiful. There's some folks at UW-Madison that we've been working with a little bit with cultural connections out to Oregon. And she's been taught how to make pitch sticks by some of her community members, where you basically, you split the end of a stick and you can put fat wood or something that's really resinous and slow burning. And so there's some really neat ignition tools, and what it forces you to do is be much more mindful in how you spread your fire. A drip torch, super cool, really powerful, because you can just spread so much fire so fast. So It's a great way to inspire, thoughtfulness.
Evan, why don't you grab that one and show it? Because Rita says, this is all new to me, but I love this.
Oh,
this is great.
You mean the drip torch?
Lots of people online will know a drip torch, but
just in case you need to start a fire, this is our class one, so it doesn't have fuel in it. Because the mixture that most people use is a combination of diesel and gasoline. So you get super dirty, greasy, smelly. My wife loves the smell of gasoline, so she's clearly born to be a burner.
Yep.
And once you've assembled this, you tip it over and fuel comes out of the point here, and there's a little wick that's flaming, and it catches there and it drops that fire onto the ground. And by mixing gasoline and diesel, you get both the spark of the gas, but the longer burn of the diesel. And that it's an amazing tool, super powerful.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, let's do one final question, and then we'll close out. But I want to. Ron asks, is the viewing of the Wilderness Act limited as it's used as a funding source, or could it be available on YouTube?
Ooh, good question. So we are in the first year of its life, and so we are being a little protective, and we're going to all the as many film festivals as we can, and then we've arranged a couple screenings. The Firewise group up in Ely, Minnesota, hosted an event just to kind of have that conversation around community engagement with fire. We've done some pub science talks and things like that, and so it does cost money and time, and especially Melanie she's a very engaged person as a grad student, a mother, really important person in her community and things like that. And so Bazile has done a really good job of working with folks who want to host a screening to identify, donations and funding opportunities to help cover the cost of travel, and a panel, which is what we've done a couple times. And that has been really fun and I think really effective. And then our plan is after this first year, we'll put it out so that then everybody can have it.
Yeah, that's great. And it's and Ron, since I know you and I know that you're local, the Stewardship Network is also looking at how to bring it to Michigan. So you might be able to stay tuned for a showing with us. Evan, I want to thank you so much for not only being here today, but for the work that you do, for the relationship building that you bring all across, and to see it spreading. I mean, to see it spreading to this Straits on Fire. You're right; that is the best logo ever.
It's so cool.
Yeah. So.
To be clear too, there are so many of these were already happening. And so there's this convergence, much like the Stewardship Network is a network of networks. There's a really wonderful kind of synergy that's happening. And I want to, can I share one last thing before I'm done?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So
with my outro.
Okay, so when the open house for the new exhibit at the estuarium in Superior happened, I am teaching a fire ecology class this semester, and so we took a field trip up. We met folks at the University of Minnesota Cloquet Forestry Center. We did some pile burning and some line prep, and then we went and partnered with students from Fond du Lac Tribal and Community College to go out onto Minnesota Point and do some unit prep and to talk about it. And that was opened with ceremony. And so for the students from Platteville, a lot of this is brand new and it was super impactful. It was a great event. And when I had them write reflections, and at the end of the reflections, all of them were optimistic.
Yes, that's so great. Right? I love that.
Yep. And they did something with their hands that they can control in a time of it was beautiful. And so, yeah, I think that's one of these pieces that's emerging from a lot of this work. So I wanted to end with that. I forgot to mention that. And it was just beautiful that the optimism in the next generation was beautiful.
That's so fabulous, Evan. I think that, all of you online here, thank you for being here, right? I mean, thank you for coming and gathering with us as we had this conversation today and got to learn from Evan and hear stories. Really appreciate all of your time being here today and being part of our community. So thank you.
It is an honor.
Yes. As I say, become a regular. Put it in your calendar for the second Wednesday at Eastern Time. It's noon now. Or you can go to stewardshipnetwork.org and register. Kind of next slide. Yep. Participatory science at the leading edge of biological invasion. European green crab in Washington State will be in May. And then we have how fear and hope are reshaping political and biophysical landscapes on the Northern Great Plains in June. You can register for all of these right now. In July, we've got rain gardens, the tricky, the watery, and the inspiring. And want to encourage you all to start reporting. Report what you do. It's a fabulous chance to just celebrate. This is all about celebrating the work that you all do and being part of a community, as Bob said in the beginning. So thank you for the work that you do every single day, all of you. Thanks for spending time with us. We really appreciate it. We really love having you part of the community. So again, thank you.